Today, we're putting tanked water heaters and tankless water heaters in a 5-round head-to-head grudge match to see who will reign supreme for your RV. My name is Emily. I'm a certified mobile RV repair tech, and this is RV Repairwoman. Before these water heaters tape up their knuckles and go into the octagon, let's talk a little bit about how these guys work. So, tanked water heaters usually have a large tank on them, that's where the name comes from, that's either 6 or 10 gallons large. This guy is a 10-gallon tank. We heat the water in that tank using either gas or electricity that heats up a heating element. And that water tends to sit there hot all of the time, waiting for you to use it. A tanked water heater is going to kick itself on and off as it sees fit to keep the water in the tank hot. When you go to use that hot water, you're only gonna get either 6 or 10 gallons of hot water. As you pull some hot water out, cold water is going to get pulled in, and the heater is going to try to heat that cold water up. So in reality, you're going to get a little bit more hot water than the size of the tank, but not by much. The big takeaway here is that you have a limited amount of hot water that you're going to get with a tanked water heater. Eventually, you will use up all of the hot water and need to wait for the tank to heat back up. Tankless water heaters, on the other hand, lay dormant and cold until you call for hot water. When you turn the hot water faucet on at your sink or at your shower, an inner core inside of this tank heats up. And then we run water through some very small tubes in a spiral around that hot core. This is because water can get hotter in smaller amounts faster. Water comes in cold at the bottom, and by the time it's spiraled all the way to the top, it's nice and hot. This is how we get the endless hot water that salesmen pitch when they talk about tankless water heaters. As long as we have cold water to supply to a tankless water heater, it should be hot by the time it comes out. But let's see what this looks like in action. I love a long, luxurious shower at the end of a long day. But for those of you that have tanked water heaters in your RV, you know that that isn't always an option for you. As we talked about, tanked water heaters usually have either a 6 or a 10-gallon tank. 10-gallon water heaters obviously hold more water, but they also tend to take longer to heat up. P.S. If you have a tanked water heater that has both a gas and an electric setting, and you want to try to take the longest hot shower possible, I recommend putting it on the propane setting. It's a little more efficient, so the water's going to heat up faster and you can take a longer shower. Bonus tip, if your water heater will allow you to have it on both gas and electric at the same time, go ahead and do that. That will give you the longest, hottest shower that you can possibly get. But if you have a tanked water heater with a 10-gallon tank and you have it set to gas, you can usually get about 15.8 gallons of continuous hot water. That means you're gonna get 15.8 gallons before the water starts running cold, and you're gonna have to wait so that the water heater can catch up. That 15.8 gallons is taking into account that as we pull hot water out of this tank, cold water is going to be going in, and the tank is gonna be trying to keep up. RV shower heads range in how much water they put out, but 2 gallons a minute tends to be a pretty good ballpark. So if we divide our 15.8 gallons of hot water by the 2 gallons per minute our shower head will use up, we get a shower time of around 8 minutes, which is perfectly fine if you don't have a lot of hair, but personally for me, it takes me a little bit longer to get through all of this. And if you, your significant other, and your kids all want to shower in one night, that's most likely not happening. Tankless water heaters, on the other hand, provide endless hot water. As long as you're hooked up to city water and don't run out of propane, you can shower to your heart's content all night long without having to worry of running out of hot water. And something that I don't see enough people talking about, with the tankless water heaters, you can usually customize the temperature of the water that comes out. You can usually change it from anywhere from 95 to 125 degrees. And it can switch between those temperatures very quickly. So if you are somebody who likes a scalding hot shower while your hubby maybe likes something more lukewarm, you guys could take perfect back-to-back showers without running out of hot water, and you can both have them at the temperature that you like with just the press of a button. There's no customization like that on the tanked water heater. You get whatever temperature water comes out. So for round one, I'm gonna have to give it to the tankless water heater. Tankless water heaters are also sometimes called on-demand water heaters. While this is kind of true, I consider it a little bit of a misnomer, and I think it's a term that salesmen throw around in an attempt to confuse customers that don't understand how these work. When I think on demand, I think the moment I turn that hot water handle, I'm gonna have hot water coming out. And that just isn't the case. Remember how tankless water heaters have that hot core with the tubes spiraling around it? Well, every time you stop calling for hot water, that core cools down almost immediately, along with all of the water in your water heater. So what does that look like when you're using a tankless water heater day to day? Every time you call for hot water, that means every time you turn the faucet to hot, you're gonna have to wait 5 to 10 seconds to get hot water to come out of that faucet. While this may not be that big of a hassle when taking a shower, for instance, that's certainly faster than I get hot water in my sticks and bricks shower. It can be a real pain in the ass, specifically when you're trying to do dishes. I don't know how you do your dishes, but I find myself turning the water on and off several times throughout the process. So every time you turn that hot water off, you're gonna have to wait another 5 to 10 seconds when you turn it back on in order to get hot water. And I mean every time. For all of my camp queens out there, that might mean that for you, doing your dishes might take a little longer if you were doing them with a tankless water heater than if you were doing them with a tanked water heater. But if you're someone that really loves boondocking and you have to keep a close eye on your water usage, doing your dishes off of a tankless water heater can mean a lot of wasted water as you're waiting for that water to heat up each time. On a tanked water heater, you may have to wait a couple seconds the first time you call for hot water so the water can make it from the tank to the faucet, but once it's there, you usually have hot water every time you turn that faucet on and off. So when it comes to doing the dishes, I'm gonna have to give this round to the tanked water heater. Now for round 3, let's talk about the flow rate of your water, which is something that's gonna affect you whether you're taking a shower, doing the dishes, really anytime you're using water in your RV. Tankless water heaters have a built-in regulator that's going to slow down the flow of water. The hotter you want your water, the slower that flow rate is going to be. That's so the water spends more time going up that spiral and has more of a chance to get hot. For a Girard tankless water heater, which is the brand I have here, you're looking at an average flow rate out of these guys of around 1.2 gallons per minute. And if you were to get a Furion tankless water heater, which is another big brand out there, you're usually looking at an average flow rate of around 2.4 gallons per minute, which if you're considering between the two brands, I would say is a huge plus for the Furion tankless water heater. I don't have enough experience between the two brands to really give a full recommendation on either, but that difference in flow rate is huge, man. While those water pressure rates might be fine for you in your RV, if you're someone who already struggles with water pressure, a tankless water heater might exacerbate those problems. Whereas a tanked water heater isn't going to affect your water pressure at all. So when it comes to flow rate, I'm gonna have to give it to the tanked water heater. And for round 4 of this water heater grudge match, we're gonna talk about weight. If you are someone who is really concerned about being overweight in your rig, you're one of those people that sat there at the scales madly pulling things off of your RV so you can get your rig to a weight that you can safely pull with your truck. For those RVers out there, a tankless water heater is going to be significantly lighter than a tanked water heater. A tanked water heater is going to be full of water all of the time, even when you're driving down the road and not hooked up to city water. If you have a 10-gallon tank, water weighs about 8 pounds a gallon, so there's 80 pounds of water sitting in this tank if it was full. Whereas a tankless water heater, kind of by the name, does not have a tank full of water in it. Even when this guy is full of water, he only holds about a liter of water inside all of those tiny tubes. And so you're looking at under 2 pounds worth of water sitting in this guy, as opposed to the 80 pounds that you would have in a full tanked water heater. So if you were to switch from a tanked to a tankless water heater, you could drop about 80 pounds of weight and presumably bring your precious limited edition Spider-Man comic book collection back into your RV. Or whatever's important to you. When it comes to weight, I gotta give this round to the tankless water heater. This is it, folks. Both of our water heaters are neck and neck at this point. Who will win? Well, we gotta talk about freezing now and how both of these kind of water heaters handle the cold. As long as you never lose power and you never run out of gas, both of these water heaters should be able to survive all of your winter totally unscathed. But you need to keep a much closer eye on the tankless water heater than you do the tanked water heater. Water freezes in smaller amounts faster than larger amounts. The downside to the tankless water heater is all of the things that allow it to heat up faster also mean that it will freeze up faster. Think about putting a whole jug of water into your freezer as opposed to just making tiny ice cubes, which is gonna freeze faster. Because in the tankless water heater, the water is sitting in these very small tubes, you're much more prone to freeze ups and cracked pipes in a tankless water heater. To prevent this, tankless water heaters almost always have a built-in freeze protection system. Usually what this looks like is once the outside temperature gets to around 36 degrees Fahrenheit, this water heater is going to kick on periodically, even when you're not calling for water, just to keep those tubes inside from freezing. When this is working the way that it should, the freeze protection should prevent any freeze ups from ever happening in your tankless water heater. But in order for that freeze protection to work, you need to never run out of gas and never lose 12-volt power. The moment that you lose either of these things, you are going to lose your freeze protection and be at risk of this guy freezing up and cracking very quickly. A big time when this comes up, especially for RVers, is when we are driving. I, along with the manufacturer of these water heaters, along with pretty much every certified body that teaches techs, recommend that you do not drive with your propane on. This is for safety reasons. You can go ahead and debate me in the comments and tell me how wrong I am. It just gives me more engagement on the video. But yes, even Lippert, the manufacturer of these tankless water heaters, says that you should not be driving with your propane on. Because you can't drive with propane on means that you can't drive with any freeze protection for your tankless water heater. No gas means no heat, means no freeze protection. So you may be asking, how the heck does Lippert expect you to drive around in cold temperatures with one of these things? They recommend that you winterize your RV every time you drive it through a cold environment, which if you would like, let me know in the comments and I will make a video on how to do that for these tankless water heaters. Lippert is expecting you to do that every time you drive with a tankless water heater through the winter. When I recently took an extra continuous education training on these tankless water heaters, I took it in Oregon. Oregon, unlike Las Vegas, actually has winter. And at the time that I was there, was having this abnormally cold summer. Even though I was there in the middle of June, it was getting down into the 30s at night. All of the other techs that were Oregon-based at that training were saying that they were swapping out tankless water heaters for customers every single week due to cracked pipes in them. When you crack a pipe in a tankless water heater, it basically means that you are getting a new water heater. The process to change out pipes in these is such a pain in the butt that the cost it would take to fix it is going to be greater than the cost to just put in a new one. I'm normally a fix it, don't replace it type of person, but for these, almost any professional is gonna do that instead. Tanked water heaters, on the other hand, should be fully winterized if you're putting them into storage, but day to day, if you're using them, you don't really need to worry about these guys freezing up. Even if you're going to be driving through a cold environment with your propane off, for a couple hours, because the water in here is stored in much larger amounts, the odds that this guy is going to freeze up is incredibly low. And if you're at the point of this tank freezing, you have already had larger problems in other parts of the water system in your RV. Freezing was honestly a factor I had not even considered until I took that training in Oregon. As someone who lives in Las Vegas, we can go years without it ever dipping below freezing here. But if you live somewhere that gets an actual winter, or you enjoy driving through the mountains or anywhere where it might get cold, these tankless water heaters are probably not the best option for you. So for anyone living in a cold environment, these tanked water heaters are gonna win this round. But really, this is gonna come down to how you RV. Are you a camp queen that lives in Las Vegas that likes to take long, luxurious hot showers? Then a tankless water heater is gonna be great for you. My parents, on the other hand, love to off-season camp and specifically like camping in cold places. Their rig came with a tankless water heater and they hate having to baby it all the time. And side note, that freeze protection I talked about on the tankless water heaters kicks on and off all throughout the night if it's cold out, and if you're a light sleeper, it really can wake you up. They personally really don't love their tankless water heater. If you are someone that has specifically a Girard tankless water heater and you're having some problems with it, consider going to rvrepairwoman.com/tankless, where I have created a step-by-step PDF guide that's going to walk you through how to diagnose every part that's testable on these tankless water heaters. They're gonna cost you less than a tech is gonna charge you to come out and look for them, and honestly, it can be hard sometimes to track down a tech that will look at a tankless water heater because it's a little bit of a niche thing to know about. Again, you can get those guides at rvrepairwoman.com/tankless. You got this.